Response video to TJ. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while since, I could care to watch one of his videos. I am anti-censorship, so he's responding to, or adding more depth to apparently an Amazing Atheist video he did about some, whatever, religious billboard in New York or something, I don't know. And just pointing out that he's not for censoring speech. He's, just believes in this free marketplace of ideas thing. So I guess I will add more depth to his in-deptherizing by commenting on how some of this rhetoric is just useless because it's not reality. So let's play some of it and we'll deal with the verbiage.
I mean, there are some things where I think that, it's appropriate for intervention. But for the most part, I believe that people should be free to make mistakes. They should be free to do things I disagree with. They should be free to propagate opinions that I don't like, even if I believe that they're socially harmful. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, I believe that in a truly open marketplace of ideas, the bad ideas will eventually lose. I believe that
this free marketplace of ideas is the concept that I'd say is vacuous, because that's not what we have. All right, I mean, I think quite obviously we don't have that when money buys propaganda, when popularity buys propaganda, where the fight isn't a fight, right? It's a thing through, it's almost an inheritance of ownership of the ear of culture. So in that atmosphere, to say something like, okay, we have this open free market of ideas, I just think is bullshit rhetoric. It's like our democracy itself is so tainted by structural brokenness. This idea that we don't have representation. Like, I don't have really a congressman in my whole life. Not once. I've never had a congressman that I voted for. So I've never had representation, and we call ourselves a representative democracy. And what are we representing? We're representing this geography, right? So I have a geographic representative, somebody who represents my geography. And he does so in a manner where he gets 51% of the people in that geography to vote for him, and he just basically says, fuck you, to the 49%. I mean, so what is that? Is that a free marketplace? Is that, is that something that's earned in any real way? Okay, so, it's like having a game, and any game has to have some sort of rules, and this idea that we're not going to apply any rules to this thing called propaganda or message sending. I mean, realistically, all of these engines have their own agendas, and these engines are not they're not controlled, they're not required to earn their place. The migration of money is controls so much, and also the migration of this idea that a popular notion doesn't have to fight a fair fight. It can just keep living off legacy. And so I'll play some more of his video just because he says some things about I don't think that are accurate ways of interpreting what even causes change. Yeah.
People might be a little slow, but they do seem to eventually see the light, if you really drill it into their heads. I mean, and that...
Yeah, well, but you have to drill it with some sort of, like I said, you have to gain a kind of twice the momentum, or 3 times the credibility, or 5 times, or 10 times the credibility, before those minority voices will even be given any fair seat at the table of the argument. And so again, it's not really an open and fair contest, and it obliges there to be it puts a barrier to change up that is just obnoxiously huge.
that's why we've seen what social progress we have. You know, a couple generations ago, if a bunch of straight white dudes killed a gay guy, you know, it was treated like, well, whatever, you know, they fucking...
Well, I'd almost argue that some of that has gone full circle. You know, that people have become incredibly insensitive to isolated incidences, and maybe they should be. You know, in some respects, some of that hysteria, and let's call it what it is, a kind of hysteria. You know, one plane crashes and everybody shows up, and then, you know, the people that died in the plane crash are somehow more important than the people that don't die in plane crashes. You know, if you got killed in 9/11, somehow it was better than dying of cancer. You know, somehow you're more meritorious a human being. You know, does that make any logical sense? No. Is that how propaganda and how ideology and how thought in the brains of the human race are generated? Yes. And it's a kind of propaganda. And it's epistemic and it's self-feeding. And so you could almost argue that that we were becoming a smarter nation, a more elegant nation, okay? And then we decided, let's import the third world and become idiots again. Let's import religious bigots from poor countries to come here and fuck our country. And you know, I don't want to get into a political argument, but that's essentially what we did. You know, we went from becoming more elegant as human beings, and we decided to get stupider, and we became more of a society that revered the rich, and you know, did this whatever, you know, and in that reverence allowed their policy of, yeah, let's you know, drive wages all the way down to the bottom. Let's exploit the hell out of people because we can all make a profit off of it. The rich will give us a little bit of blood money. They'll feed us a little bit of their wealth off that exploitation, and it'll be in our self-interest to fuck over some other population, even our own people, in the sense that, yes, let's import the third world with some dopey notion that they're all going to become sophisticated, and they're not just going to be they're not going to just be desperation to exploit to keep wages low. And that's all they really turned out to be, right? And so there's a kind of irony, right? Is that the real obstacle to progress on social issues like religion and gay rights and all that stuff, the real problem now isn't the domestic population, it's the immigrants who are full of this religious babble. And so it's like we're marching backward, not forward. In many respects, we should be so much further forward if we didn't take all these steps backward, ironically.
That'll teach him to be a queer, basically. That was the fucking attitude of society. Now we would find that behavior reprehensible, and rightly so.
Yeah, I just don't know if we would. I just think there's a lot of people who just don't care enough, okay, to say, okay, I want to be angry at gay people. No, they couldn't care less. But they also couldn't care less if a few of them got run over. So I think part of what you're saying is the good thing is a bad thing. Because now people just don't care one way or the other. And I think that's worse than caring badly is not caring at all. So, you know, I think there's some poison in this this cure. You know, this medicine isn't 100% good medicine. There's a lot of bad medicine in popular ideology because it has become so self-obsessed and so self-interested that you know, Jefferson's a rapist. You know, yeah, that's the new propaganda. I mean, the new way of looking at the world is let's not pay attention to the country he helped build. No, let's sit there and worry about some personal defects.
And that's because social attitudes have changed. And the reason social attitudes have changed is because the argument was constantly advanced. it was advanced on the political stage, it was advanced in the media, it was advanced in popular culture like television and other artistic mediums, and
Yeah, so I mean the propaganda seeped. Yeah, that's partially true. I concede the point, but I think also it could be argued, again, that some of this is for the wrong reasons. Some of it's just because people have just become so insular and so indifferent, and it has become sort of we're almost migrating backward in the sense that we are becoming less and less human and more a group, a kind of human, and those kinds are being more and more separated. And there's more and more people who don't bother to even they come to this country and they don't even bother to learn the language because they can do just fine living in their insulated other world that they create for themselves in our country. And so that's sort of the I think that's very corrosive in the long term.
was slowly but surely demystified. Gay people became less threatening to America the more it became familiar with what gay people actually are. They're not demons trying to corrupt your children to some sinful lifestyle. They're just people.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I just don't think it's that simple. I don't. Obviously it went through all kinds of different transitions. I mean, you had the whole AIDS thing, and that was one of these double-edged things, right? Because half of that created more hysteria about the dangers of these perverted sex acts, and but the other side to that is that it was very hard to watch people live through that horrible experience, and so they became very empathetic, and especially when people like Freddie Mercury or other people would die, and people would say, look at the waste and look at the loss, and blah 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 and blah blah blah, and so all of that does help. But I mean, there's a lot of hurt also in that public exposure, where there's a lot of it's double-edged. But I think just the fact that we are letting go of religion has more to do with letting go of that bigotry against gays. And the bigotry against gays wasn't anything deeply felt by people. It was just something that was a popular bully kind of perception. Just because it was unpopular to be empathetic, it was unpopular to be sympathetic, sissy kind of perception. So yeah, it became easier for people to separate themselves from that myopic, simplistic view. But I don't think, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think that humans became enlightened. I don't think it's through some grand enlightenment. It's a really superficial enlightenment, and an enlightenment they should have had 1,000 years ago. I mean, the fact that religion stayed alive at all is because it never had to fight a fair fight with a logical argument. I mean, right? Yeah, I think pretty much right.
Like everyone else. And, maybe they have certain cultural traits as part of the subculture or whatever, but it's not anything that truly separates them from heterosexual people or bisexual people or whatever other distinctions there are out there. And that's part of how a discussion happened in America. And, it's a very generational thing, and it's very incremental. In fact, it can be frustratingly incremental, because some of us want to see quick, radical change, but really quick, radical change is not always a good thing, because sometimes you demand...
Yeah, and I don't know if that change is going to mean anything, right? I mean, mean something in what way? Like let's just say you give people gay marriage. I mean, the only part of gay marriage that means anything to me is just the obvious cheat of the theft. The fact that people can't make contracts where they get the same economic advantages as people who do it the traditional way. So the idea that, again, it's all this graft, right? So the traditional family is already controlling the politics and stealing the money, in the sense that, yeah, they forced me to pay, property taxes. 80% of property taxes are to take care of other people's kids. Well, why am I subsidizing their reproductive choice? And so that's what it comes down to, and for me as an ethic, is just the fact that gays have the same rights to these material advantages. Whether they have some right to tell a church that they have to accept them, I think that's kind of bullshit. That's a kind of an anti-censorship, in the sense that why should a church be obligated to play along? I mean, certainly they should be obligated if they're doing public service work on the side, and they have some sort of public service reputation. I mean, it's like a public employee can't walk around with, kick the niggers out of town kind of signs or something. I'd say, yeah, you're violating your public service job, because nobody wants to go do business with a public servant they think are racist. So yeah, if you're racist, you really shouldn't be a public servant. If you want to be an advocate for racism, that's not going to work. So in a way, that has to be a certain kind of rule or censorship, a controlling of the propaganda.
And the quick radical change over and over again, and then it finally happens, and it turns out to be this huge destabilizing force for society, because you really jumped the gun. You did it before the entirety of your society was ready.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what good examples of that. It seems like the opposite. The slowness of change seems to be the thing that's really more corrosive than the speed of change. I mean, too slow a change is more dangerous than too fast a change.
And that's why I think we have so many problems now with these elements like the Tea Party, who have this attitude of, we won't compromise. We won't allow ourselves to be educated. We're going...
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of funny that you would isolate a group like that, and I could say, like, this whole pop culture notion that the other sentient mammals on Earth are so far inferior to human beings because they can't do math, and they can't have, complex emotions tied to their, they can't have complex ideas tied to their very complex emotions, and that somehow you can just exploit the fuck out of them and it's okay because they're not human enough. I mean, it's this imbecilic, stupid notion built out of complete, just grotesque bigotry and nothing else. There's no rational argument for that except one based on some sort of culturally God-based notions of reality. And yet that idea survives. Why? Oh, that's because it's popular. And because it's never really had to meet a fair fight. Present company...
to cling to our beliefs, which really they're not beliefs. They're just a system of ignorance.
Well, there you go. And there's all kinds of those all over the place. And those systems will remain as long as we have a system where it isn't about censorship so much as it is propaganda, and who promotes the propaganda, who pays for the propaganda, who has the money for the propaganda. So the fact is that minority ideas are censored all the time because of not only the political system's bias, representing my geography rather than representing my ideology, but the media is certainly biased. It's certainly selling. You had an ad run on your video here. It's certainly based on who's willing to do business with a capitalist, who's willing to take their money, who's willing to say what they are going to allow you to say. So this self-censorship is just as invidious as some sort of forced censorship. The censorship of bribery is just as controlling as any kind of brick wall of censorship. So I just think this idea of a free marketplace of ideas is kind of just absolute bullshit when we know that money buys voice. And it just does. And it's a fact. And until we fix that, we don't have no free marketplace. So anyway, enough said, I think. Well, we might as well play to the end, right? What the hell? I took you this far.
There are a series of protective bubbles to shield them from reality. And if you have that, then it's very difficult to advance the social conversation. And that's really what the Tea Party is all about. They know that they're going to lose the conversation if they allow it to proceed any further. So they're trying to halt the conversation, but they won't be successful. I don't believe they'll be successful.
Yeah, I don't know what that even means. How are they halting the conversation? Exactly. I mean, are they guilty of some sort of censorship beyond the fact that they own some propaganda? Propagandists. Yeah, I don't know.
But I guess the main points you should come away from this with are basically that I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in an open marketplace of ideas.
Okay, well, I don't even know, like I said, what do I do with that? Where is that open market? Where do I go to be open marketplaced? Is there a place I go to be open marketplaced? Are you saying YouTube's an open marketplace? I mean, YouTube now on isn't even, if you don't put words in the title, it won't even index the video. It's ignoring tags, it's ignoring description words. It always has ignored conversation in the comments section as part of indexing a video. So in what way is YouTube this vehicle for an open marketplace of ideas? I mean, really, seriously. Is it really ideas that are in the marketplace, or is something else being marketed?
And don't ever think that just because I criticize something, that means that I necessarily want to see some legal remedy taken, because that's not usually the case.
Well, I mean, do you think there should be a legal remedy for the fact that the entire internet is all privately owned? That there are no public sidewalks, there's no public streets to walk. You can't pick up a placard and stand in front of Google on the internet. I mean, there's just no way to do that. There's no vehicle for it. There's no functionality for it. So there's nowhere, you don't even get to protest like in the special protest area, 5 blocks away. There's nothing. Okay, there's no place you go unless you're going to buy yourself the building across the street, or buy yourself some other property located close enough where you can yell loud enough to be heard. But it doesn't exist. Do you have a remedy for that? No, I didn't think so. Alright, anyway. So whatever. Yeah, I mean, everybody should be against censorship in the overt sense. But, the Rapsion guy, that whatever weird kid thingy, he made some comment about blocking people and how someone's complaining about free speech if you block somebody. But again, so again, the other argument I'll make real quick is just that there's lots of mechanics to the battling of ideas, and the really big difference between how easy it is to tear something down versus how difficult it is to build something, right? So this is just one of these basic ideas that solutions are a lot more complicated than problem identification, and that rationally we should realize that there should be some sort of compensation for that fact, because the terror downers are always busy. You even see it in the politics in terms of the art of personal destruction kind of stuff. Let's just go find some dirt that we can weight this guy's policy down with. So the policy becomes the person, and if you can tear the person down, you've torn the policy down. And that's what's just so unintelligent in terms of our marketplace of ideas. What's the point of having a marketplace of ideas is if you can attack ideas by attacking the person that holds them. I mean, if you can sink the boats this easily. I mean, if you can drill holes in the boat so easily. And that if the idea of, you know, that you can just have everybody wasting their time just plugging all these stupid holes being created by these unaccountable, I'll make an accusation and have him waste time proving the fact that I'm a liar. I mean, why should somebody have to do that, right? Oh, I'll go waste, instead of making my argument, I'll waste my time fighting all the people who are lying. Yeah, so, I mean, there's just so many things broken with this marketplace. So I'm just saying, I don't think you should use terminology like, I'm for a free marketplace of ideas, when that's not what we have. And you're not even suggesting like we go to one. Like, you're not even explaining how, well, we could do this and then we could have one, because we're not even close either way. So enough of a video, I believe.